I'm Haley, 34 years old, and I've been married to Nathan, 36, for 5 years. From the outside, our marriage looked like a postcard, a beautiful home in the suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina, 2 steady jobs, weekend dinners out, and at one point even plans to adopt a dog. But all that charm was just a curtain hiding the suffocating reality I lived with every day. I married a man who couldn't untangle himself from his family. Nathan's family was like a shadow, never leaving our lives for even a minute. They didn't visit like a loving family should, they invaded, took over, and treated everything I had as shared property. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Harris, were always making comments about the eldest son's responsibility to support the family. And his brother, Travis, 38, was like a winter draft blowing through our house whenever he needed rent money or repairs for his rundown pickup. Travis's wife, Vanessa, 33, simply assumed I'd help whenever she wanted a nose job, dental work, or just because I deserved to be pampered. When we first got married, I was naive. I used to think if I just play the role of a good wife, they'll accept and respect me. I didn't realize that to them, I was never a person. I was just a walking wallet. I'm the head accountant at a financial firm, and I'm extremely careful with money. Every dollar I save has a purpose: retirement, emergency funds, the dream of opening a small cafe after 40. Nathan always said he trusted me with finances, that I was the responsible one. But every time his family had an issue, real or made up, he'd withdraw money from our joint account without telling me. It started with a few $100s for Travis because he missed a delivery job. Then $1,000 for my mother-in-law because her electric bill was overcharged. Most recently, Vanessa called me directly, pouting that she needed to fix her eyebrows after a botched job, and Nathan said you'd understand. I had a direct conversation with Nathan. I didn't want to be the bad guy, but I couldn't keep ignoring how my hard-earned money was being handed out like flyers. He apologized, made promises, swore, but then it kept happening. It wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a choice. A cold, selfish choice. I began withdrawing all my personal savings from the joint account. I switched to using my own accounts, changed passwords, even opened a backup account at a different bank under my name only. I didn't tell Nathan, not because I was hiding, but because I no longer trusted him. I thought that was enough to protect myself. I thought I was being smart. But I overestimated my security and underestimated the ambition of his family. It happened in early June when Nathan suggested we take a trip alone, just the two of us, no interruptions. When he said that, a part of my heart softened. I told myself maybe he was trying. Maybe, after everything, he still wanted to salvage this relationship. I agreed. I booked a luxury resort in Hawaii where the sea sparkled like glass, and the late afternoons felt like a gentle hug. I didn't know that trip would be the turning point of my entire life. And everything I ever trusted would come crashing down. In just one evening, I was no longer the unconditionally supportive wife I had been at the start of this marriage. After forgiving Nathan too many times for his slip-ups, I decided to protect myself. I stopped depositing money into our joint account. But I didn't say a word. I still smiled when he handed me my morning coffee, still said have a great day as if nothing had changed. But inside, I was preparing for what my gut told me was bound to happen. Every time Nathan fell asleep on the couch, I didn't wake him. I quietly took his phone, pressed his finger to the fingerprint sensor, and unlocked it. I didn't check his messages. What I needed were the financial apps, bank passwords, email verifications, and security questions. He always picked things that were surprisingly simple. His childhood dog's name, his mother's birthplace, his favorite food. I wrote it all down, missing nothing. When I got the chance, I did the same with his laptop. Not because I wanted to spy, because I knew in this house, the only one with nothing to hide was me. I even secretly checked my mother-in-law's tablet when she dozed off in our living room one day. Same simple patterns, easy to guess, but enough for me to start building a secret financial map of their entire family. Travis, just as I suspected, used a single email linked to all his bank accounts, digital wallets, and even his investment app. Vanessa was even sloppier, saving her password in her phone notes under the name Shopping 123. I used to feel guilty, but then I remembered how they spent my money without blinking, calling it my duty as a daughter-in-law. and the guilt disappeared. I didn't act right away. I waited. I kept accumulating, not just money but information. I opened a new bank account under a lesser-known middle name from my youth. I gradually transferred my savings there, never too much at once to avoid suspicion. I also bought a small safe, hid it in the basement behind a bookshelf, and kept printed copies of important documents, bank statements, IDs, investment contracts. I even placed an encrypted USB drive at the bottom of a tea box containing digital copies of every password and file only I knew it existed. Meanwhile, I observed. Nathan grew more confident. Maybe he thought I'd settled down because I no longer questioned every transaction. I let him take from the joint account. The small balance I left there was intentional, just enough to avoid raising alarms. One time, when he shut his laptop without closing a banking tab, I glanced and saw he had just sent $3,000 to Travis with a note. For a small loan, we'll explain later. I just nodded when he returned, pretending I hadn't seen a thing. That was the moment I realized. They weren't just using me. They had decided I was an endless resource. The only thing that gave me a sense of control was work. Every day at the office I felt like I could breathe in a world that made sense. Every number followed rules. But in my own home, every value was twisted to match the wishes of a family that never saw me as one of their own. I remember one time, Vanessa called me during work hours to say she had accidentally ordered a designer tracksuit worth over $1,000 and Nathan said, "You'd understand, we'll pay it back later." I didn't respond. I just hung up and stared at my screen for a long time. I didn't know exactly what was coming. But I knew, when they decided to treat me like a walking ATM, they picked the wrong person. And I, in all my silence, was preparing a feast they'd never forget. And then, the trip to Maui came at just the right time. Nathan said, "We need to reconnect. No family, no phones, no emails, just you and me." I looked at him, pretending to be touched. But deep inside I was smiling. Because if they thought I'd keep backing down, they were about to find out I'd come too far to ever turn back. The flight to Maui lasted 6 hours, but I didn't feel tired. On the plane, Nathan held my hand the entire time, his eyes full of fake affection that made my skin crawl. If I had been the Haley from 3 years ago, I might have cried from emotion, but now, I just counted each minute, each heartbeat, each opportunity. The resort was in Lahaina, right by the ocean, where waves crashed against the rocks like whispers of an oncoming storm. Nathan had booked the premium package, oceanfront villa, private pool, breakfast in bed. I didn't ask who paid. I knew. He used the credit card under my name, the one I opened for emergencies. I let it slide. I wanted to see how far he'd go. The first 3 days felt like a dream, scripted to perfection. Candlelit seafood dinners, expensive white wine, couples massages at the spa. Nathan kept saying he loved me, that he felt like we were back in the early days. I smiled. I smiled because I knew those early days were about to end. And neither of us would ever be the same. On the 4th night, he booked a private table on the VIP beach area. The table was decorated with purple orchids, candles flickering like a movie scene. A waiter in a white shirt and bow tie poured wine for us. Soft jazz played in the distance. I wore a sapphire mousse silk dress, his favorite color. And I played the role of the perfect wife one last time. Nathan raised his glass to me. To us. To a new beginning. I clinked glasses. To a beautiful ending, I thought silently. When the main course was served, he put down his utensils and took my hand. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, still smiling. I tilted my head, pretending to be concerned. "What is it?" "I transferred your savings into my family's account," Nathan said casually, as if he were talking about picking up milk. "You don't need to worry. It was the right thing to do. Our family needs help, and you're part of them." My heartbeat slowed. Not from pain, but because this was the moment I'd been waiting for. I let go of his hand. Before I could say anything, from behind a nearby bamboo screen, Travis stepped out, holding a champagne glass. Vanessa followed, wearing a smug smile and victorious eyes. "Surprise!" Travis laughed loudly. "Haley, you're now the official sponsor of the Harris Family Fund." Vanessa walked up to the table, patting Nathan on the shoulder. "Well done, babe. We all thank you, Haley. You have no idea how much trouble you just got us out of." I looked at each of them, every face I had once welcomed, once bought birthday gifts for, once invited to dinner. Now they stood there laughing over the life I had built with my own hands. You really think I'd just sit here and smile after being betrayed? My voice was calm but sharp as glass. Nathan frowned. Travis stepped back. Vanessa scoffed. Come on, Haley, Nathan said quickly. You're overreacting. It's not betrayal. We're a family. And family takes care of each other. I lowered my head. My shoulders shook. They thought I was crying. Predictable. Haley. Nathan stepped beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. I looked up, straight into his eyes. And I smiled. Nice speech, I said, because funny enough, I just finished transferring a few things too. Travis furrowed his brows. Vanessa raised hers. What? Nathan asked, his confidence fading fast. Right then, Travis's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, eyes glued to the screen. His smile vanished. Vanessa opened her clutch, pulled out her phone. She froze. Nathan quickly grabbed his phone from his pocket. The screen's glow lit up his face, and I'll never forget the panic in his eyes. No, no way, he whispered. I raised my wine glass and took a small sip. Looks like I'm not the only one who knows how to transfer funds. Travis slammed his hand on the table. Where's the money? He shouted. Vanessa stammered. My account. The balance is 0. Nathan looked at me, his eyes filled with desperation. Haley, what did you do? I smiled gently as if wishing him good night. Just taking back what's mine. And let's see who really betrayed who. While the three of them scrambled in panic, I sat still, savoring every second. The ocean breeze played through my hair, the waves still murmured in the distance, but the dinner table had become a stage where I was the only one holding the script. Nathan fumbled with his phone like he was searching for an undo button for the disaster unfolding. Travis was frantically calling the bank, his voice rising with each word. And Vanessa? She collapsed into her chair, lips trembling, her eyes staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. Haley, tell me what you did, Nathan blurted, his voice stripped of confidence. You couldn't have... Couldn't? I raised an eyebrow. You should know me better after 5 years of marriage. I pulled out my phone, opened my personal banking app and held the screen up. A neat, precise list of transactions, clear down to the penny. I had used money from Nathan's account to fully pay off the mortgage on my house. The same house he once told me I should sell to help the family. The savings from Travis's account? I transferred them to a charity fund supporting victims of financial abuse. The donation was made under his name. Which meant, like it or not, Travis was now a gold sponsor of the organization he once mocked as a cash sink for bored housewives. And Vanessa? I used her credit card, the one she'd handed me to book business class tickets, to buy kitchen supplies, a washing machine, and even a brand new refrigerator for a women's shelter in Florida. All delivered, non-refundable. You're insane, Vanessa hissed, her face flushed with fury. I calmly took another sip of wine. No, I'm clearer than ever. Then I turned to Nathan. As for you? I left exactly $1,000 in the account. Enough to keep it active, but not enough to do anything with. I smiled faintly. And guess what? Your return flights to Charlotte? I just downgraded them to economy. Seats by the restroom, no special meal options. What? Travis shouted. I paid for business class. You thought you paid, I corrected him, but your card was declined 3 times, then the system automatically bumped it to the cheapest available seat. Looks like the bank didn't appreciate your account going empty. Nathan went silent. His eyes no longer angry, just afraid. For the first time, I saw the man who once proudly said, I'll take care of everything for the family, come to terms with the fact that he had nothing left to take care of. You can't do this, Nathan stammered. We're married. And yet you had no problem transferring my savings to your family. I tilted my head. You didn't think about us being married when you did that? Don't expect me to now. I'll sue you, Travis yelled. You had no right to touch my money. Oh, I had every right. Remember those emails you asked me to check because you weren't used to online banking? I kept everything, including the voice memo where you told Nathan, just trick Haley a little, she's obedient. I looked him straight in the eyes. Want me to forward it to my lawyer? Travis swallowed hard. Vanessa pulled out her phone, but there was nothing left to do. The Wi-Fi was weak. Her data was off. I knew that, because I'd asked the front desk to reduce the bandwidth near our villa earlier. Nathan dropped his hand, like he'd finally realized the battle had ended, and he had lost from the very beginning. I stood up, dabbed my lips with the cloth napkin. I'll be staying here a few more days. Don't worry, I've booked a different villa. This place is a little cramped for 3 freeloaders. Haley, please, Nathan called after me. We can talk. We've talked enough. I turned to look at him one last time, and this time, I'm ending the conversation. I turned away, walking through candlelight and crashing waves, leaving them in the ruins of their own greed and betrayal, but deep down I knew the game was far from over, and they hadn't realized yet that I didn't just reclaim what they stole, I reclaimed myself. I had just stepped off the dinner area, my heels sinking slightly into the damp sand, when I heard chairs clattering and frantic shouting behind me. Haley, stop right there, Travis's voice growled, full of rage. You can't just walk away like this. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to look to imagine his face. Beet red, veins bulging on his forehead, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles had gone pale. Travis had lived his whole life off others. He'd never learned how to take a loss, let alone understand what it meant to lose everything in one night. Behind me I heard flip-flops slapping against the ground, then Vanessa's shaky voice. Haley, please, you don't understand what this could lead to. I stopped, turning slightly, my gaze as cold as northern frost. No, Vanessa, you don't understand. I've lived long enough to know exactly what you all saw me as, and now, you finally know who I am. Nathan rushed up, leaving Travis shouting into his phone and Vanessa sobbing behind. He stood in front of me, face full of guilt and panic. Haley, I'm begging you, he said, voice low but urgent. I was wrong, I know that, but you didn't have to go this far. Didn't have to? I repeated, part amused, part disgusted. You moved my money without asking, let your entire family laugh in my face. And now that it's falling apart, now you remember you were wrong? I just wanted to help my family, Nathan mumbled. I thought you'd understand. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I understand. You didn't need a wife, you needed a talking ATM, and I've been quiet long enough for you to think I'd never fight back. Travis suddenly barged in, face crimson, voice booming. You play dirty, Haley. You'll pay for this. I didn't respond, but the resort's security did. A tall man in uniform walked up from a distance, voice calm but firm. Sir, please keep your voice down. If not, we'll have to ask you to leave the private area. Travis kicked the sand in frustration, but didn't dare go further. Vanessa was sitting on the ground, crying uncontrollably. Nathan stood frozen, eyes locked on me, hopeless. That was the moment I knew. They wouldn't let this go. And I was right. I left the beach and took a small path through the coconut garden back to my villa. My heart was still pounding, not from fear but from adrenaline. I knew they wouldn't give up easily. Nathan didn't take losing lightly, especially not when he'd believed he was the one in control. Just as I stepped inside the villa and locked the door, my phone rang. An unknown number. I silenced it. Then another. And another. Texts started pouring in, a mix of begging and threats. You don't know what you're doing. They won't let this go. I'm begging you, give it back. If you don't help, this could get out of hand. I sat down, opened my laptop, logged into the bank. All transfers were still secure. Then checked my email. A thank you letter from the charity had arrived, confirming Travis Harris as the donor. I couldn't stop a laugh from escaping. Suddenly the doorbell rang. I froze. It was past 10 p.m. I tiptoed behind the glass door, and there was Nathan, alone, looking panicked. He was whispering into his phone, then hung up and knocked. Haley, open the door. We need to talk, just the two of us. I didn't answer, I just watched. Then another figure appeared behind him. Not Travis, not Vanessa. A tall man in a dark shirt, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the villa grounds like he was assessing the layout. He said something to Nathan. Nathan shook his head. The man growled something back. Nathan nodded reluctantly. I swallowed. A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't me Nathan was afraid of. It was someone else. And that someone was standing at my door. I backed away, double-locked the door and activated the internal alarm system. My heart pounded. The game was no longer just between me and his family. Something bigger was happening, and I needed to be ready. I retreated deeper into the villa, pulled the curtains just enough to peek through. Nathan was still on the porch, eyes locked on the door camera, lips moving with words I couldn't hear. The man behind him remained silent, but the air around him was unnervingly heavy, as if his silence had weight. I turned away, grabbed my phone. No signal, no 4G, no Wi-Fi. I tried reconnecting several times, but the screen just blinked before displaying unable to connect. I rushed to the mini router in the corner. The indicator lights were completely off. I realized someone had done this, not a technical glitch. This was intentional. In that moment, I felt my blood turn cold. What had happened before, the betrayal, the money transfers, those were psychological games. But now, this was a real threat. I quickly shut all the windows, pulled the curtains tight, locked every latch. Then I grabbed the key from my nightstand, opened the small safe behind the painting, and pulled out the encrypted USB drive containing everything. Emails, texts, recordings, even the clip I filmed from the hidden camera in the villa's living room, where Vanessa once yelled, "Haley's not smart enough to fight back." I slipped the USB into my purse next to my shoes and passport. Part of me wanted to run immediately, but the other half warned me that stepping out now might mean walking into a bigger trap. Outside, the knocking grew louder, this time more forceful. "Haley!" Nathan's voice was hoarse, laced with fear and anger. "Open the door, you have to fix this. I don't know what they're running out of patience." I frowned. Then another voice spoke. Not Nathan's, not Travis's. "Miss Hiley, we need to talk." The man's voice from behind was low and cold. "Things will go much easier if you cooperate." I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out my phone again and tried to make an emergency call. The screen spun, then went black. No connection. I realized I was cut off. No one knew I was in trouble, not a single person. Then the banging on the door changed to light, steady knocking. As if the man no longer needed to rush, he had time. And he knew that was more frightening than yelling. I moved to the back of the villa, where a side door led straight into the garden. As I unlocked it, I jumped at the sight of another man standing there. Tall, close-cropped hair, black shirt, hands in his pockets, eyes completely expressionless. He wasn't resort staff, and definitely not a guest. "Good evening," he said, like making casual conversation. "Heading somewhere?" I slammed the door shut instantly, my heart pounding like a war drum. Now I was certain. This wasn't just about a greedy family anymore. This was something else. More dangerous, darker. I gasped for breath, backed into the bedroom, yanked open my suitcase, stuffing it with clothes, the USB, cash, everything I might need. I had to get out. Now. I grabbed the room phone and dialed the front desk. After 3 rings, someone finally picked up. "Hello, this is Villa 307. I need a car to the airport. Immediately." The staff hesitated. "Ma'am, your reservation still has 2 more nights." "I'll pay the cancellation fee, that's fine. Please," I was nearly begging. "Yes. I'll arrange the car right away, it'll be there in 10 minutes. I hung up and exhaled. But then I heard something outside the window. A scraping sound like metal against glass. I peeked out and saw the same man walking around the villa holding something that looked like a lock-picking kit. I rushed back to the living room and grabbed the decorative golf club off the wall. Not the perfect weapon, but if I had to use it, I would. A voice came through the front door. Slow. Cold. "Miss Hiley, I know you're listening. They lied to me. But I don't like being deceived. And you? You're holding something that doesn't belong to you." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. Now I realized it wasn't just Nathan's family's money. There was something else this man wanted. Maybe during my time digging through laptops, I had stumbled onto hidden accounts, possibly illicit transactions, maybe money laundering. I had once thought it was just creative accounting, but now I understood. I had accidentally touched something they'd been hiding for years. I looked at the clock, 3 minutes. I just had to hold out for 3 more minutes. I didn't know what I'd face once I stepped out of here, but I knew that if I stayed, I might not get another chance. I crouched behind the sofa, breath shallow. Footsteps echoed outside the hallway, slow, steady, and eerily calm. I tightened my grip on the golf club, my palms slick with sweat. My mind raced, trying to piece everything together. Who was that man? He didn't seem like someone hired just to intimidate. He didn't need to shout or break things. His silence was the most chilling warning of all. And then, a name flashed through my mind like lightning in a storm. Ethan. Not Nathan. Not Travis. But Ethan. The cousin from Nathan's side who had visited our house a few times before disappearing like a ghost. Every time he showed up, he drove luxury cars, dressed impeccably, and spoke like he was constantly testing whether you could read between the lines. I remembered once Ethan had left a small USB in Nathan's office. Thinking it was work, I had plugged it into the computer and froze at what I saw. Spreadsheets showing international wire transfers, offshore banking codes, recipient names that weren't in any contact list. I had assumed it was some kind of under-the-table investment tax dodging maybe. I closed the files, deleted the access history, and tucked the USB into a drawer like nothing had happened. Now, I wished I never had. Because if Ethan was involved in illegal dealings, and if I had unknowingly accessed that network through the accounts I once monitored, then I wasn't just being punished for taking back my money. I might have become a link in something far more dangerous. I sprang up, rushed to the safe and pulled out the backup USB I had once thought was just my escape plan. If my suspicions were correct, this drive held more than proof of Nathan's betrayal. It could be the reason I was being watched, cut off and cornered like prey. I plugged the USB into my laptop, glancing out the window. The man was still standing there, hands in his pockets, eyes locked like he knew every move I was about to make. I opened the folder labeled Archive, Matt, disguised to look unimportant. And there they were. The old files from Ethan's USB. I opened them one by one. Massive wire transfers from countries on global watch lists. Recipient names matching organizations previously linked to laundering, and within one of the PDFs, Ethan's signature. I clenched my fist. If those people outside were here for the money Ethan owed, and believed I had touched the system, then I no longer had time to explain or negotiate. Just then the room phone rang again. I didn't answer, but after a pause it rang again. Then a voice echoed from the speaker. "Haley," Nathan's voice, "please, listen to me. They don't just want money, they want something else. And you have it." I stepped closer, pressed the hold button. "What are you talking about?" His voice cracked. "The USB." Ethan said, "You have it. You opened it, didn't you?" My heart skipped a beat. "I didn't know what was on it," I replied, though it sounded like a lie even to my own ears. "Haley," Nathan whispered, "you have to give it back, or give it to me, before they do something we can't undo." I stood frozen. For a moment, I didn't know what was real anymore. Nathan? The man who betrayed me was now the only person standing between me and a threat I couldn't name? I looked again at the man outside the back door, then back at the screen. Just as I hesitated, a new email popped up. No sender listed, just a subject line, "You have something that's not yours." Right then I understood. Ethan wasn't the only one tangled up in this. I had been pulled into a much bigger game where rules no longer applied and money was only the surface. A soft thud echoed. Something hit the front door. This time, not a fist. They had started, and I had only one move left. I shoved the USB into my coat pocket just as the doorbell rang again. This time, a single, sharp ring. Final, like a last warning. I stepped forward, parted the curtain slightly. The man was still there, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him was a black SUV idling silently, its rear door cracked open. And standing right beside Nathan was Ethan. My heart dropped to my stomach. He looked the same, gray suit, slicked back hair, face chiseled like a number from one of his wire transfers. But his eyes were different now. They knew fear. I didn't open the door, but I activated the intercom. "What are you doing here?" Ethan stepped forward, one hand raised like I was holding a weapon. "Haley, please. Don't do anything reckless." Coldly, I said, "Reckless? Like you, running illegal transfers and dragging me into your mess?" The man next to him stepped forward. He didn't give a name. He didn't need to. "I'm not interested in back and forth," he said, his voice like a growl from underground. "I just want to know, do you have the money?" I stared at him unblinking. "No." Silence. Even the ocean breeze seemed to pause. He squinted at me, like weighing whether my lie was worth letting slide. Ethan suddenly dropped to his knees on the tile entryway. "Haley, I'm begging you, this is my fault, but if you don't return it, we'll all pay the price." "We?" I smirked. "That's funny, when the money came in, I don't recall anyone calling me we." "We're out of time," Ethan cried, almost panicking. "These people, they're not like others, Haley. I made promises, and if I don't—" "What?" I cut in. "They'll threaten me again?" This time the man stepped even closer, barely a foot from the door. He didn't raise his voice, and that made him more terrifying than any scream. "Miss Haley," he said slowly, like every word was a blade. "We don't care who's at fault, we care where the money is. And Ethan," he glanced down at Ethan, trembling at his feet, "has lost all credibility." Right then a screechy voice echoed from down the path. "Vanessa." "Ethan. Oh my God, I told you not to get mixed up with these people." Behind her was Travis, pale as a sheet, clutching his phone but too scared to use it. Nathan stood still, eyes downcast, unable to speak. A complete mess. A group of people who once looked down on me, now standing there like broken puppets with tangled strings. I looked the man straight in the eye, my voice steady. "If you're all so smart, then you must also know that money was transferred legally, with receipts, with documentation, everything is under Ethan's name. If you want it back, sue him." The man tilted his head. "You think the law will protect you?" I didn't smile, but my gaze was sharper than any sarcasm. "I think you're standing in the middle of a luxury resort with cameras, with security staff. And I just activated the alarm." Right then, sirens blared. Red alarm lights flashed from the villa's roof. A resort security vehicle pulled into the back area, stopping at the corner. Ethan screamed, "No, Haley, you don't know what you've just done." The man didn't move. He looked at Ethan, then turned back to me. That look, it wasn't fear. It was memory. "Good," he said, short and cold. "Very good. You'll be hearing from us." Then he turned and walked away like there was no need to hurry. Ethan was stopped by 2 security guards for questioning, and Nathan stood frozen like a statue. I didn't know if this confrontation was truly over, but I knew one thing. From this point on, I wasn't just dealing with traitors. I was facing people who don't accept defeat. And I, Haley, would not be anyone's prey again. As the alarm faded, the villa grounds fell into a chilling silence. The resort staff withdrew after confirming no one was harmed, but they left 1 security officer posted outside at my request. The ocean breeze was cool and damp, but the coldest thing was still the gaze of the man stepping out of the black SUV. He looked back at me one last time, eyes as dark as a bottomless sea. "Miss Haley," he said, low and deliberate, "I'll say this once more. I'll get that money back, either from you or from them. The choice is yours." Travis held his breath. Vanessa trembled. Nathan stared at the ground, his face pale. Only Ethan dared to lift his head, but his eyes were bloodshot, like a man praying for a miracle he knew would never come. I slowly stepped forward and faced the stranger. "You know what makes me different from the people behind me?" I asked, oddly calm. He raised an eyebrow but didn't answer. "I don't beg, I don't stall, and I don't negotiate with thieves." He narrowed his eyes. "You picked the wrong person to challenge." "No," I replied, "you picked the wrong woman to threaten." I turned away, walking past their stunned expressions. Vanessa broke down in sobs. "You can't do this. Haley, please, don't leave us like this." Travis grabbed her hand, but he was shaking himself. Ethan mumbled something unintelligible, and Nathan finally looked up. "Haley, you don't understand how big this is," he said, voice choked. "If you don't return the money, they'll—" I turned around. "They'll what?" I cut him off. "You think I'm afraid? After everything you people did to me, stealing, mocking, betraying, and now you want me to save you?" Nathan opened his mouth, but no words came out. I looked at Ethan. Everything's under your name, transfers, accounts, offshore wiring. I kept copies, and if anything happens to me, my lawyer will send every file to the FBI within 12 hours. Play whatever game you want, but I won't be your pawn anymore." The man squinted, then turned to Ethan. "I told you, no negotiating, no waiting." Ethan collapsed to the ground, hands over his head, mumbling like he was praying. As for me, I turned and walked away. I heard Vanessa wailing behind me, Nathan calling my name like it was the last card he had to play, and Travis cursing into the void. But I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I walked down the gravel path toward the airport car. The driver was already waiting, door open like an invitation to freedom. As the vehicle pulled away from the resort, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw their silhouettes shrinking in panic. For the first time in years, I exhaled and felt nothing weighing on my chest. But I knew this wasn't over. What I had done wasn't just revenge. I had stumbled into an underground network Ethan was part of, and that man wasn't the type to simply let things go. Once I reached a hotel outside the resort area, I checked in under a false name. That night, I contacted Rachel, my best friend from college, now an attorney in New York. I sent her copies of every file, with one note. "If I don't return on time, send all of this to the FBI and the international banks. I trust you." The next morning, I boarded the first flight back to the mainland, business class, window seat, hot breakfast, but I didn't sleep. I just sat there, holding tight to my handbag, the one with the original USB. I didn't know what Ethan would do next, or if that man would return, but one thing I knew for certain: I was no longer the woman crying quietly in a dark corner. I landed at Charlotte Airport on a foggy morning. No one was waiting, no flowers, no smiles. And yet I had never felt so free. I stepped onto the cold tile floor of the terminal like someone who'd just come out of a storm, shaken but alive. I took a taxi home. My little house sat in a quiet neighborhood, maple trees shedding leaves across the path. This was the home I had once built with all my heart, and the place once claimed as family property by the Harris clan. Now no one else had a right to touch it. The key turned smoothly in the lock, the door opened, and the lavender scent I loved still lingered in the air. I stepped in, set down my suitcase, and locked every door behind me. A simple act, but for the first time in years, I felt truly safe in my own space. The first thing I did was cut all ties. I changed every password, email, bank, credit cards, new phone number, private internet, no trace left behind. What remained? Wedding photos, handwritten notes from my ex-in-laws, fake birthday cards. I packed into a box and set it in the basement. I didn't throw them away. I wanted to remember just how far I'd come to escape it all. The news started trickling in days later. On a local news site, a small headline made me smile. Harris financial firm under investigation for fraud and money laundering. The photo showed Nathan in a gray suit, head down, escorted out of his office by federal agents. I sat on my couch, poured a glass of red wine, and pulled up the full press conference. An FBI spokesperson confirmed an ongoing investigation into suspicious international transfers, many traced to accounts linked to a man named Ethan Miller. I had given Rachel everything and she missed nothing. The USB was submitted directly to the Special Investigations Unit. All of it legal. All of it traceable. A few days later, I received one final text from Vanessa before blocking her new number. "I didn't know it would get this bad. I'm sorry. But I've left too. Don't worry, I'm not coming back." I didn't reply. Vanessa was always the first to run. "Travis, I heard his assets were frozen due to joint investments with Ethan. He's living with his parents in another state, a place where, I imagine, there's nothing left but bitterness. And Ethan? Gone. No news, no address. No mention in any court record. I suspect he fled the country. Or worse, was dealt with by the people he owed." "And Nathan?" I got a handwritten letter, no return address, just the familiar handwriting. "I still love you. Please help me one last time, Haley. I'll change, I swear." I tore the letter into tiny pieces and tossed them into the fireplace. Not because I was still angry, but because I no longer cared. Each morning I wake up in a fully paid-off home, sip coffee on the wooden porch, and listen to birds instead of accusations. At night I open a good bottle of wine, play soft jazz, and let the warm glow of the lamps bathe the wooden walls. I'm not rich. I don't live in a mansion, but I have freedom, and that's something no one in their family ever truly had. One early fall afternoon, Rachel dropped by. She looked at me, raised an eyebrow, then laughed. "You look different, like someone who just stepped out of a self-healing book." I winked, maybe because I just finished the last chapter of one story and started a new one. I'm not a victim. I'm not a revenge seeker. I'm just a woman who learned how to stand up, stay standing, and shut the door on people who don't deserve to be let in. And if anyone asks me if I have regrets, I'll just take a sip of wine, smile, and say, I only wish I'd done it sooner. From my own story, I learned that sometimes what breaks us isn't the fall itself, but the people we trusted most. I had loved, sacrificed, turned a blind eye until they treated my forgiveness like a given, but the moment I stood up and reclaimed myself, I knew I never needed anyone to save me. I was always the one driving my own life, and from now on, I'll never apologize for choosing myself first. What do you think about Haley's choice? Would you have done the same in her shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional and meaningful family stories.